moderator for this session is Ms. Neera Sharma, Chief Executive and Legal Officer, Sistema Smart Technologies Limited. Let's warmly welcome Ms. Neera Sharma. With a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. And let's also welcome our panelists, Mr. Amar Sundram, General Counsel, Senior Vice President, Legal and Chief Compliance Officer, NEC Corporation, India. Mr. Amar Sundram. Our next panelist, Mr. Sameet Gambhir, Vice President, Corporate Law and Company Secretary, DCM Shriram Limited. Warm welcome. And Ms. Shweta Girodra, Associate Vice President, Paytm. All right, let's once again welcome Ms. Manjaree Chowdhary on the stage. And Ms. Neera Sharma, please take over.
Checking whether it's a good morning or good afternoon. So it's good afternoon now. Very good afternoon, everyone. Today we are discussing the very hot topic, which is the talk all around the world, ESG. So people do confuse ESG only with the climate change or global warming, which is not the case. Actually, like ESG stands for the environment, society and governance. So all the three aspects are covered under this. And every business enterprise these days is deeply intertwined with the environment, mental, social and governance matters. And there is a more significant push to commit to ESG efforts now. And ESG has been attracted attentions from all the stakeholders these days, investors, consumers, government, everybody is worried about this issue. And ESG is important as it creates high value, drives long-term returns, and global stakeholders are paying attention to the topic. And it is important to note that ESG provides an overview of its performance. And ESG can be viewed as a non-financial performance of an enterprise and build insight into the long-term value. Actually, ESG is primarily defined as a triple bottom line approach that combines financial gains, adhering to social and environmental norms. Moreover, ESG aspects have also become global standards of reporting and disclosures now. And environmental, social and governance as a set of standards for a company operations that socially conscious investors use to screen potential investments. So these days all the investors are very conscious of this fact that where they are investing, what that corporate is actually doing. Are they conscious of all these facts? And environment criteria considers how a company performs as a steward of a nature. And social measures examine how it manages a relationship with employees, suppliers, customers, and communities where it operates. And governance deals with a company leadership, executive pay, audits, what kind of internal controls are there, what kind of shareholders' rights are there, and is the company creating any shareholder value there. So with this background, I would say that ESG, basically the framework, assesses a company's behavior concerning environment performance, social impact and governance issues, nothing less, nothing more. And then I will just go to my panelists. I will start with Manjaree and Amar, if they can share your views on ESG and mainly related to climate change issues, and how do you think that these days corporates perceive this issue and what they all are doing internally, and if you can just touch upon a brief role of in-house counsels and GCs in this aspect.
Hi and good afternoon everyone. It's as always a pleasure to come to a Legal Era event and to see all of you here again. Some are friends, some are new colleagues, so thank you for being a nice audience. This question is an important one, as Neera has already set the context. ESG is, last year was the flavor of the year. This year it's become a mandatory requirement. I think everyone's beginning to catch up and look at it a little more seriously, because we all have to, at least the top 1,000 listed entities in the country are expected to make mandatory disclosures by the end of the financial year. As Neera said, I think we often mistake, or we have often used the word ESG quite interchangeably with sustainability. That's how we all have been looking at it, you know, how to do sustainability. And when you talk of sustainability, it has always been more regarding climate change, emissions, environment-related issues. So sustainability, when we talk the topic, you know, you by and large see that we talk on environment, and we talk on emissions, we talk on waste and effluent management, we talk on having green supply chains, all of that, you know, and extension of green areas, you know, whatever you do in terms of reducing pollution and pollutants, that is important. But is that all what an ESG is? It is not. There is an S and a G to it, which is of equal importance. And I was reading an article where it was a very nice question posed by the writer, saying that, you know, we need to move beyond environment in ESG, move on to the societal and the governance part, which is equally important. People have done already a lot. In India, the corporate world has caught on. The last 2 years of pandemic have actually woken up the world. The Western world had woken up to it, but I think it has accelerated the process of understanding how important ESG is today in the world, in the corporate world. That it's not only about economic and financial sort of wherewithal and what you do, but it is also talking about what is your social equity, what is your environmental equity that you bring, and your social understanding of things around you. Those are things that your investors, that especially the young millennials and your customers are looking at more critically. What I read during the pandemic was that, you know, mutual funds that have invested in companies which were had a high quotient of ESG did far better than mutual funds that did not. And given the fact, see, corporate social responsibility, when did this whole concept start? It started with the New Companies Act in 2013, when we brought in sort of the CSR was introduced as a concept. I see, and now with SEBI really having the business, you know, sort of responsibility reporting was always there. Sustainability is something that they've added afresh, and you know, now it was voluntary to begin with, just as CSR was, and of late you may have seen how CSR has been strengthened, made more stringent, and the government is tightening, you know, the norms around that. ESG is expected to go the same way, where they just started with making it voluntary, now they've made it compulsory, and this year when you see corporates send out data, it's not going to be really very authentic data, if I might say. Authentic in the sense that there will not be too much of data that will be given. The corporates are also trying to get their arms around what may be required. SEBI's come out with 9 parameters on which you're expected to, you know, make your disclosures. People will have to get used to it. They'll have to understand what those are. Are corporates having the entire wherewithal to be able to make the most appropriate kind of reportings on ESG at the end of the year? Some may, others have to catch up. So we need to set systems in place. You have technology to be used, you can set up databases, you have to get your processes and policies in place within the organizations. You have to set up committees, you have to set up verticals who are going to create specific focus and look after this particular area to be able to give out the disclosures and the data that the government is looking for. I think it's my guess that what government will do when the first disclosures are made, it's going to be data mining. They are going to look and see that, how are companies reacting to this? What kind of data is coming to the government on this? Where are the gaps? And then based on those gaps, I think each year they will begin to tighten the norms going forward, and that's how we'll have to take it. So to Neera's point, I feel that you have to move the agenda beyond of climate change, just about that. That's a very vital and important aspect. I come from a company where we only talk of emissions, but the fact is that those are critical and important, but we need to look at the societal part of it, where we need to talk of inclusion, diversity, we need to talk of the employee relations, labor relations, what are you, how, the remunerations, etc. All of that is a part of the societal piece which also deserves a great focus. And governance, of course, all of us have always been doing governance. It's hygiene, it's the law of the land. We just need to integrate it now into the ESG piece, and companies need to see how these three, when integrated, are going to add value to their business case. It has to integrate with the business requirements, otherwise it will not probably sustain itself. And eventually make it a competitive edge. I think that's going to be the next step, when companies will try and see how it can add value to them and in front of their customers and stakeholders to gain a competitive advantage of being, having a high quotient of ESG. So I think keeping those things in mind, the journey is started. Some companies are already on the bandwagon, others have to kind of reach there, and there will be others who will take a couple of next year or two to get to it. But I think looking at ESG in a very composite manner is something that companies need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Manjaree. That's very insightful. So I'll go to Amar now. A lot has said by Manjaree already, Amar, but I feel like I'll share my view. Like ESG was here, I think, for many years now. The regulation around these different aspects is in bits and pieces, like it's staggered way. People are complying with that, and there is maybe one day one window will come when all this will be come under one regulation. Like there are different regulations scattered here and there, which corporates are complying with, and when they are saying ESG, as Manjaree already mentioned, it is more of a climate change, and they are saying zero carbon and all that, and many investors are making the bets that they will invest only in the companies who are carbon zero, or they are like there is equality, and they are forming some, like there are certain compliances which they are doing. They will invest only in those companies. I don't know how far they will be able to achieve that in the coming, like they are targeting say 2030 or something, like I don't know how soon they can do that, and is it really possible? And moreover, India is a very dynamic market, and we have like huge population with the different beliefs and values. So what are your views in keeping all these in mind, like where we stand today in the ESG prospect, like and how the corporates are behaving these days?
Thank you, Neera. So ESG is a much wider and a broader concept, and let's touch upon just one pillar of the entire ESG, which is the middle one, the society. And when we talk about society, what has been done and what is being done in India in order to improve the quality of life of the people in this society? Let's have a look at it. And let's really see if it is changing the lives of the society. And that is where I bring in the entire element of innovation and technology. And let's see what is happening in India. So I was just reading a couple of days back, 142 smart cities is being developed. The government has come up and they have launched Smart Cities Mission 2.0, where they are targeting 4,000 cities with a population of 5 lakh each to be developed by 2023 as a smart city. Now, how does it improve the quality of life of the people in the society? So, if you see all these smart cities, ultimately there is an integrated control and command centers. The entire civic amenities, the entire public amenities are all integrated under one integrated platform. People have an easy access to public amenities. This traffic control, traffic management, all these are integrated under one platform. The parking systems are getting all integrated under one platform. How did it help during the COVID times? So during the COVID times, and Bangalore is a beautiful example. So Bangalore has an integrated control command centers. So they have used this integrated dashboard to supervise and monitor the COVID hotspots. And then they align with the local municipal bodies to provide aid, services, and quickly control the spread. They also used this integrated dashboards for telemedicines, right? So ultimately these cities are developing fast. Many of the smart cities have environment sensors which are AI driven. And what does these environment sensors do? They predict the weather conditions, they predict the climate, they predict and they monitor the soil moisture level. And all these are going to help the farmers in predicting the weather, how it is going to come, and therefore optimize their field operations and the likely crop disease. Now all this taken together is developing in a big way where innovation and technology go a step further. I mean, most of the airports are going to have a facial recognition technology which will mean that there is a seamless entry and seamless check-in. All this will lead to convenience to the public. 4 airports, Pune, Vijayawada, Banaras and Calcutta, they are already scheduled for this launch of official technology. So these are all improvements which are happening in the domain of the society, easing the life of the people in the society. Now, how is government responding to it? The recently launched the logistic policy, I mean this national logistic policy. What is the aim? If you see this national logistic policy, the prediction is that currently 13 to 14% of the GDP, which is a cost, which is a logistic cost, is going to reduce to almost 8% in next 5 years. They are also talking about an unified logistic platforms where almost 7 ministries who deal with logistics and transport, all this will come under one platform. Right? So overall, if you see, with the use of innovation and technologies, the aim is to lessen the, increase the quality of life of the people, and ultimately somewhere all of these are going to help in the reduction of carbon emissions. The kind of organizations that we come from, we are developing big time into smart cities. We are RFID tags, we are collaborating with the government, there is a joint venture with the government where we are putting RFID tags for shipping containers, right? And this is bringing down the cost of the shipping. It is also helping in reduction of the carbon emissions. And one of the estimate is that 170,000 tons of carbon is getting reduced every year because of this RFID tags that we have. So overall, the government is also in that direction of ESG, where the aim is to improve the quality, aim is to control the environment, control the emission by whatever way it can. And therefore, technology is going to play a big role in that.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Amar. Like technology is like now there is nothing can move without technology now.
I'll give you a recent example, Neera. I stay in Gurgaon, and a couple of days back, this rain which happened in Delhi NCR. So there was suddenly an order by the local administration. The DC came out with an order and they said that water logging, how do we control that? And they said that one day, they said that all organizations will work from home, right? And they said that the schools will be closed, but forget the school part, but they said that all organizations will work from home. The whole objective was to control the traffic on the road. to see that how the technology help in controlling these natural disasters. So technology is going to play a big role.
And people became more aware about the technology during these COVID times. Like, it is not always necessary to have physical presence. You can do a lot of things virtually also. And with the push for the sustainable development goals and the climate action movement gaining momentum, and the sustainability reporting landscape is changing rapidly, not only in India, around the globe now. And with this business responsibility and sustainability report was introduced in 2021. And reporting landscape in India has come a long way from the introduction of, like when they have said that business responsibility report, I think that was sometime in 2012, and it took like almost maybe 10 years to come to this stage where we are today. And now, like, there is like, it is basically the standardized reporting format that give a baseline to compare environment, social and governance goals across the companies and sectors. And it is also the need of the hour. So, Sumit, like, you are a governance person, so I'll ask you, like, what are your views on these SEBI disclosures and whatever the reportings which has been introduced? And do you think that all these disclosures and compliances will affect, like, is there any additional responsibility or liability is going to have on the directors also? And what are your views on that?
Okay, thank you, Neera. I think it was a wonderful discussion when we spoke about, and Amar also spoke about a lot on ESG. I think we are, there's a lot of competition now in terms of corporate boardroom that, how to achieve, what kind of things to be achieved in ESG. I'll give an example that, in one of the business meetings, what we have seen now is that, people are not only giving the targets for the business, but also giving their target for the ESG as well. So this is a very common phenomenon now. Now the one thing, as you really rightly said, the director's liability and all, it reminds me the one thing which is nobody's thinking now is a term called greenwashing. And that greenwashing is a big concern now in days to come, because recently I was reading somewhere that SEC has constituted a task force basically to review and scrutinize all the ESG reports and to understand if they are giving any misleading things or not. Because in all these competition, now people are thinking that there is no regulatory framework for this, there is no audit required for this, except few 1,000 company which you say the BRSR is required. That's a great step by the SEBI. And in the risk management committee also you need to have a risk of ESG. But that again is not something which is required to be audited or required to be assured and all. So now the people actually are in competition, and the problem which we are going to face is that authenticity of the data in ESG reports, and that's very, very important, because everyone knows that ESG के ranking में ऊपर जाना है, and the people who are ranking ESG are also not basically affiliated and all. So everyone is in the race to get this ESG done. But now we have to really understand, and that's where I say the role of a legal counsel, the role of a company secretary is very, very important. They are the person who can advise the board that what is to be done. They are the people who can actually review the report before it goes to public. And I always tell, it's not a job of one person. It's a task force we have to create in an organization who will actually see that the report which is going in public doesn't have any misleading fact. It's not something which is unnecessary. You are in the competition. You are creating a lot of things. So it has to be factual figure. It has to give a very, very authentic figure. Someone has to see that. You have to advise, and you have to tell your board also that this is something. And particularly in your question to BRSR, BRSR is a requirement by the SEBI. Now this has become a legal requirement for top 1,000 companies. If there is something wrong, you are reporting, that means you are doing a contravention under SEBI regulation. And that's where the director's liability comes in picture. Similarly, in your risk management committee, if you are not taking, ESG as a risk, you are not completing the role of ESG risk management committee. So apart from that, otherwise, I think it's a very good step. People are actually taking in a very positive way. In my organization, I have seen that whenever there are business meetings, we see that, once the business plans are presented, because, fortunately as a company secretary, you sit in the board meeting also. Whenever the business plans are presented, there's always one or two slides on the ESG objective. And, what kind of objectives, the business objectives, with the goals of business, the ESG goals, where are you keeping them? And I can tell you an example, we were we approved basically expansion which were either downward or upward stream only because there has been green emission. We're getting the green energy. So we recently published our sustainability. It's in public domain, by the way, right now. And I was happy to see that we are 11 times positive water. 25% of our raw material is basically recycled raw materials. All these things are there. So therefore, it has to start from the top. Director's liability is very, very important thing in this. You can't leave it on the management only saying that, okay, give the ESG report and do whatever you're doing. No, it has to clearly go to the board level. The committee, I think ESG committee is very, very important subject to you initiated. Because I think most of the companies are now starting doing ESG committee, and that's where the board will take it seriously, that it has to be an authentic data. And tomorrow I'm sure that there will be some regulator who will be regulating the ESG also, like we started with BRSR and then we started with the risk management committee. Tomorrow there will be some regulator or some framework will be there for ESG also. So I think it's the right time that all the legal guys or all the company secretaries, they should step in and then they should advise the board, put out the framework, whatever is required, keep the policies ready. So I think all this is required basically to keep your directors with the liability.
Yeah, that's true, and I think we have to now move out of this traditional board mindsets and that I know all to learn all. So people needs to be open-minded too, so that they can learn on the job that what needs to be done. Like it is a new concept, and moreover, I feel that the far-reaching effect of ESG transformation means success is dependent on focus and drive of senior leaders also. And there is certain kind of guidance and maybe the coaching is required at the senior level also, what all initiatives can be done. And ESG is, we should make it a way of life instead of compliance.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, I tell you that this is not a new concept in India. Everyone knows. In Hindustan के अंदर तो हमेशा से ही होता है. Our Prime Minister has given us a very good nara. सबका साथ, सबका विकास. What is that? We have to take everybody along. Whether it's a diversity or it's a social or it's planet, everything, Mahatma Buddha ने एक बात बोली थी, मध्यम मार्ग is the swarnim marg. That means, you have to take all the people along. You can't divide the world like, they are the toppers, they are the people who are actually, deprived from the other things. So I think in India we already have this concept. We have been, in many shapes we have seen this concept. The idea now is that the corporate and every citizen has to take the responsibility and take it to the serious level where the board can actually mix it with the goals of the organization. That's what is required at this moment.
Yeah, that is right, and I feel like maybe like over the period there will be like as they have mandated one woman director, there will be one ESG director also on the board, and I don't know like whether it will be advisable or it is good or bad, or although my thoughts are very different on that, like I feel like every member on the board at the senior and at the senior leadership position should aware of all these, and it has to go from top to bottom and bottom to top. Like even I feel like youngsters are more savvy these days than the senior management. They are more conscious of the fact how they can save their environment and what are their rights and what are their obligations and how they can safeguard. They are more aware. Even the kids in the school are more aware. They are say green at Diwali and all that. And Manjaree, I just want to ask you, like, do you think that in today, like, what all these disclosures there have been a lot of talk. There have been a lot of talk on CSR initiatives. Do you think that in the general corporate sector, the boards are actually competent enough to look into this? Like they are more concerned about the auditor report and more concerned about what is the shareholder value is created by the senior management instead of all these issues. Do you think that they have that kind of mindset or they are competent enough to handle all these issues?
A very good question, Neera, and a bit controversial too. If you ask me personally, I think good boards, the people who today man those boards in good companies or top companies, I think do have the wherewithal to be able to address this topic. Question is that we are so used to doing all the other things for such a long period of time. It is about tuning yourselves to be able to think on the topic and addressing it just as you would address the financials or any other aspect that adds to shareholder value. It is about giving it the right importance. And I think, to be fair, I think I've seen this evolve with CSR. I'm quite hopeful, perhaps a little too optimistically, but I feel that the government is using the same strategy. Gradually, people will come up to this. This is the first year. By the time, I'm talking of the top 1,000 companies, by the next year you will find more refinement in the disclosures that go out, more discussions at the board table, at the management table, where you will have everything where this is going to keep coming up. And then it is also going to be integrated with new sort of requirements that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs or SEBI is going to come up with gradually as they keep seeing the kind of data that they receive in terms of these disclosures. So I wouldn't say that, the current lot would not have the understanding of what this is. I think much is being said in the media. There is so much of talk about it generally that I think anyone who just even remotely reads their newspaper would understand what ESG is. And I'm sure a person who's on the board would understand the implications of that for a organization. It is all about bringing it to the right focus that it is going to deserve.
Prioritizing
it, yes.
So that is required, and I have seen it has to be on the board agenda, and it has to be very important agenda need to be very important agenda on the board. Not passing over like we have read the report, it's fine. So it should not be like that. And I think a lot of in-house counsels and GCs can play a vital role there. Updating the management and telling them, look, you can't get away with this. And if tomorrow you need an investment in your organizations, the investor, they will, now I have seen like globally the investors are more concerned about non-financial parameters than the financial parameters. And what is the culture in your organization instead of doing just scrutinizing your audit reports. Amar, you have talked about the social impact. If you can just say a few words, like what you can see could be the best practices for any corporate to have a good social impact and how they can work in that area, anything.
Yeah, so the first and foremost is to start with a purpose statement. And therefore, and that is where a board has a role, and therefore link your purpose statement with some element of the ESG. Convert that purpose statement into a strategy, plan the action to implement the strategy, and ultimately the allocation of capital for meeting that. And that is the whole framework. And starting point, why purpose statement, and that's a change which at least I am seeing. A lot of organizations are giving their purpose statement which is aligned to some part of the ESG. So one of the banks I used to work earlier also had a purpose statement which is linked to the kind of commitment that they have towards the society. I was going through the news item and I saw that one of the US major apparel industry organization who deals with outdoor clothing, and its name is Patagonia. And I was very surprised to see the purpose statement, and it said, we are in the business to save our home planet. That's the purpose statement. And if you read, there are a lot of work that they do on ESG. So overall, an organization has to be conscious of it. And Neera, you just touched upon that. But today, almost all M&A deals that are happening, both the acquirer and the target, they are focusing on how the company is behaving on the ESG front. And if the company is found to be lacking on the ESG front, the valuation goes down, the pricing goes down. So ultimately, it may not necessarily only be a legislative penalties or monetary penalties that we are talking about. The damage is much, much broader and wider. Your brand gets impacted, your reputation gets impacted. So therefore, lawyers are now focusing. M&A deals, people are very, very conscious. There are indemnity clauses which deals with, ESG violations. There are specific insurances, transactional insurance policies which is aligned with ESG breaches. So there are reps and warranties which are dealing with ESG compliances. So overall, the thinking, even in M&A world, is changing, and therefore an organization has to be conscious of. Slowly and gradually, organization is becoming conscious of it.
Yeah, Sameet, I just want to ask, like, how do you think that these compliances, disclosures, there could be 360-degree angle to all this, like whether it is compliant or not compliant, and what are the best practices which the board can adopt or can guide on the management? What kind of the right questions they need to ask? If you can just put some light on those aspects also.
See, as of now, ESG is something which is not a mandatory compliance, right? We only have few companies which are top 1,000 companies who are required to have BRSR. That's all is required as of now. But I think this is a high time that we need to have a framework around all these, particularly including ESG factor in that, so that tomorrow we'll be able to demonstrate that there is no misleading statement in the report. There's something which is required. So see, if you will see the format of BRSR, it's very lengthy format. It has mandatory information, it has voluntary information in that. So we'll have to slowly grow towards our voluntary information, whereas the management information are there, and we're trying to tell them that what exactly are we looking 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line in terms of the ESG. So in fact, a proper framework is required, which I think I suggest the ESG committee to all the companies that this is a high time that we should have an ESG committee in that also, wherein the framework is approved, framework is discussed, and therefore you can have the ESG related goals along with your business goals basically. Otherwise, it's unless and until it becomes a mandatory requirement, definitely nobody is going to bother about it. So. And in terms of governance, I always say that governance is something which we have been talking a lot since Enron and before that also. But governance ke liye to there have been many regulations, many regulations in Companies Act also, where we are actually doing a lot for the governance, and there's still. But in ESG, the governance means two things. One is that what all transparency policies, governing provision you are taking care. The other is the disclosure requirement. That means the environment and social related disclosures, are these properly captured or not? Is there anything which is not being captured? Is there anything which is required, not captured, or anything which is not required and captured, kind of a thing? So that's also part of the governance, I think. So I think overall, I would say that till the time it becomes a mandatory requirement, we need to be very careful, and I again say the legal counsel are the best person to advise the board about it also.
Yeah, I agree with you, and companies need to address the implication of regulatory and socio-economic change.
Yeah.
And it has become, like, I feel, is paramount to develop an ESG architecture. By assuming 360-degree approach, which not only will cover the risk mitigation, adaptation, accountability framework, but also enhances opportunities for a long-term perspective also.
Correct, because if you look at the RMC Risk Management Committee, which the SEBI has mandated now and is going to be mandated to other companies also soon, very clearly it says that you need to review the risk relating to sustainability and ESG. And not only that, but you have to review the policy after 2 years, so that keeping in view the dynamics or the changes in the businesses, you may have to review or you may have to revise your risk also. It's very important to review the risk, it's important to review the policies, etc.
I always feel that that there should be some mandate by the government that a part of CSR fund has to go to the environmental, to cater these environmental issues also. So that is, I think, one step which can be taken without much of a regulation or something. It is just one notification can be taken out by the government, and I think it will make a lot of impact, which is required. required now, and which our Honorable Prime Minister has agreed also at the Glasgow Glow that we will be code free and all that. So I think that is my view, like only on the personal view, that it can be done and it can be done very easily.
No, I agree, because this is a priority, because we only have this planet. We don't have a planet B, frankly. Ultimately, we have to save it for ourselves. And therefore, I agree with you, the large portion should go to the environment, but at the same time, in our country, the social and other governance implications are also there, because, diversity, inclusion. Look at the people who are in the remote villages, who didn't get the proper education, and now in the race, and, compare it with the people who was born and brought up in South Bombay or South Delhi. So you have to bring all the people together. The social is also, I think, wherein a lot of initiative and a lot of effort we need to take actually to bring the people together.
That's why I said part of CSR, not the whole CSR.
And in terms of governance, मुझे याद आता है कि C राजगोपालाचार्य जो हमारे गवर्नर जनरल थे, we quickly finish in 2 minutes after the. I thought you were looking at me. So C राजगोपालाचार्य ने एक बात बड़ी अच्छी बोली थी कि उसने बोला था कि I am not governing this country. This country is governed by Shriram. That means, हमारे तो इतनी stories हमारे पास, how a kingdom is being ruled by a king. We already have a lot of precedent. The only thing is we have to follow those things.
To the point that you were making, I think, and what the current Prime Minister has been talking about, I think one of the other things after this Glasgow meeting and the COP26, and he's also talked about how do you make your everyday living, integrate it into your everyday living, where you build consciousness towards environment, consciousness towards society, and consciousness towards governance. See, these are parallel narratives that are running. So, in order for something that the government wishes to push and make possible through ESG as disclosure norms, etc., which are now mandatory, there is a whole narrative of building it as a social consciousness and an everyday consciousness of living your life in a particular manner, so that the people who sit in companies are the same people who make a part of society. So once you begin to appreciate and understand this concept, you will automatically translate it into companies, and obviously the board, members of the board will have a greater consciousness around it and build it up. So when I was reading about it, I thought that these are two very interesting things and parallel things which are coming up, which will, of course, at a point in time will meet.
Yeah, you're right, Manjaree. Like, this is what I have told earlier also. ESG is a way of life, and if we want to give something good to our future generations, we need to be mindful now, and we should start acting now. We should not wait for the regulation to be there, or compliance or disclosures should be there, so that all companies are covered. Let us start today.
I give you an interesting example. हमारी जो age के लोग हैं ना, maybe a couple of younger people also here, but in my age, a very unique generation. Because हम लोगों ने माँ बाप की बहुत सुनी और अपने बच्चों की बहुत सुनते आ रहे हैं आज के डेट में. हमारे माँ बाप, there was a time, because they were struggling actually. There was a time, अगर हम रूम से आते थे और फैन खुला होता था ना, यार ये फैन बंद कर दे भाई, बिजली का बिल बहुत आता है. That was the feeling, because they were actually struggling. And now my son says कि पापा AC बंद कर दीजिए, कभी blend का भी सोच लिया करो आप अगर कमरे से बाहर. So the point here is that youngsters are much more conversant, and they are actually doing a lot in these directions. So this is what I think I agree with.
So the time is not too far when, from a corporate point of view, the companies will be evaluated not only on the basis of the profit and the revenue that they generate, but how they behave in terms of this. So that is not too far, and it's changing. It's fast changing. In our personal life, what other panelists have said, that yes, our kids, our generations are talking about environment, but corporates will be evaluated based, and their brands and numbering will all be done by what they are doing on the ESG front. So it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, that's right. And with this, we'll just end our discussion, and if there are any questions or anybody want to contribute anything or any thoughts or any views, most welcome. Anybody from the audience? Or somebody wants to share what any good practice they are following, so and enlighten us also.
I just wanted to share one point actually. Since I happen to be an investor, there's a company by the name EPI Energy, which helps companies trade in carbon credits. So how do you see the role of such companies who specialize in sustainability reports, data analytics with respect to ESG and carbon credits? Would like to have your views.
I think you guys can play a vital role. Like you can show the businesses that it is not only the compliance you are doing, and you are creating the value for yourself also. By doing the carbon neutral, there are like you will be doing more innovation in your businesses. You will be saving a lot of resources there. So you can develop some kind of report which talk to the. This is what the businesses understand. What is the value I will get if I do all this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things? If I do, what is the value creation for me? So it is not only the compliance; it is a value creation for your business also. You will be saving some costs there, and at the same time there is a brand equity also which you are going to increase, and you can be like a case study tomorrow.
Right. So would you foresee a greater contribution to outsourcing the ESG norms and regulations to?
Yeah, I think so. There will be a requisition for the like across the there will be the next upcoming thing is ESG, even in the laws, even in the consultancy, and there is a huge scope I can see, not only in India, globally also.
To your question, if I might add a
Please.
little more, I think this is the mandatory disclosures. This is the first year. The SEBI has only come out with about 9 very, very broad parameters, which really don't give too much of line of direction. This is a very broad direction. But things are going to, in the next year or two, you will see them becoming more sharper, and there'll be a greater sense of understanding what needs to be done. I think what companies like yourself, and we see a lot of them now coming up, because this is a brand new area, which is also a business case for most companies to be able to provide those services which are required. I think there is going to be a mushroom growth of companies of this nature to begin with. That will peter down to the top few good ones. One of the things that you need to keep in mind, and Neera alluded to that by saying that you have to educate your customers on the value it will bring to them. It has to integrate with the business that they do, to be able to integrate the two. And second is the authenticity with which you as companies come forward. There has to be a great sense of authenticity that yes, your customers should feel that if we go ahead with this company, this is the company that's going to be able to help us address these issues in the most appropriate way.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you so much, all the panelists. I think. Okay, thank you so much.